As we get started here with the rundown this afternoon on Fox Sports Radio 1400, of course, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Let's welcome into the program Mr. Wes Bryant from the ACC Digital Network. Wes, what's going on, buddy?
What's going on? I guess this will be my 2021 debut, if you will.
I know, right? I was so busy last week. I was like, oh crap, I forgot to get Wes on the show. But hey, it's great to have you with us today. And the main reason that I want you on the show today is because I wanted to go over a little bit of that Clemson-Georgia game from last week, where you could look at it from two perspectives. Either A, that Georgia defense is really, really good, or that Clemson offensive line is really, really bad. Which way are you? You watched the game. Did you see how it went in the trenches?
I definitely did, and I thought that was going to be the most interesting facet of that game to me, was just seeing how Clemson was going to deal with those big interior linemen that Georgia had. And I knew last season, as I've been saying all offseason, that, they didn't run the ball up to their standards last year, even with a superstar legendary back like Travis Etienne. So with a new group of backs and then an offensive line who, was good, but not up to the elite standards, if you will. So I thought that would be interesting. So to answer your question, I think it was a mix of both. I think Clemson's not yet at the level of physicality that I think that they probably thought they were and wanted to be. And it's also hard to move, 330, 40, 50 plus pound men in the middle, and then giving edge rushers one-on-one with tackles who are, pretty good, but as I said, not elite. So those interior linemen for Georgia really put them at an advantage, especially when you're talking about big men who are active. These aren't just big bodies in there taking up space, which is part of their job, but these are big bodies that are moving, creating havoc, and making the game easy on everybody else, because then, you're going to have to allocate three blockers to those guys. Unless you have Nate Newton and Larry Allen on your interior offensive line, you're going to have to dedicate at least three blockers to those guys. And guess what? Those linebackers, they're not getting touched as they scrape sideline to sideline. So that's going to make running the football wide, that's going to make that difficult. And so you can see where, running the football against a team like Georgia, guess what? Everybody's going to have a hard time running the football on Georgia. You're going to have to find your advantages in the passing game, wide receivers winning their matchups, getting open. And that was another thing with Clemson I thought was kind of hurting them as well. So it was just a cocktail, if you will, of several different reasons. But you have to give Georgia's defense, and especially that defensive line, their credit. And then you have to look at Clemson as well and say, they're not quite to the level of physicality they need to be to deal with a line like that.
All right, so you obviously played on the offensive line, and I have to ask, the center is kind of the captain of the offensive line. Would you agree?
Yeah.
All right, so Clemson basically ran out three centers in this matchup against Georgia. That's not the mix you want.
No, not at all. And as I said, going back again to the men that you're dealing with on the inside of that line, Jordan Davis, 6'6", 360-plus pounds, active, agile, moving. His running partner goes about the same size, a little bit smaller. And you're going to put new centers who the center is normally, also the smallest member of the offensive line. And when you're running out new guys out there, that's telling me you don't have the guy. And so the center is a key component to interior run blocking. I know Captain Obvious there, but that is a very key component. And when you're dealing with two mammoths in there like that, and you're not sure who you want to be snapping that football, then that is going to make life very difficult. And yet another reason why we saw Clemson only rush for 2 yards.
All right. Well, the next question I have to ask for you, though, is that we were at ACC kickoff together, and the vibe was that Clemson was the team that was there. After the first week of the season, we see Clemson and North Carolina both fall. First of all, do you think Clemson's out of it as far as heading to the CFP? Remember, no team that's lost in week one has ever made the CFP. You think Clemson bucks the mold this season?
They have a chance, and I say that not being an ACC homer whatsoever, but just looking across the landscape of college football, you have a lot of new teams with a lot of new parts. This isn't last season where you knew what you were going to get out of an Ohio State. You knew what you were going to get, out of Oklahoma and some of those crews where they had the same faces. Now, Oklahoma does return Spencer Rattler. But just saying, there are losses that are to be had in the top 5 right now. Now, Clemson, their schedule, you would hope that they can run the table. After what we saw, they have a couple of nice games to get things back in order with Georgia Tech and South Carolina State. But there are going to be more teams that are going to take losses. Everybody in the top 4, top 5 is not going to go undefeated. You could see maybe in Alabama, Georgia's going to take a loss, you would think. Ohio State with the freshman quarterback, they're going to have some games that are going to be tested that they could lose. There could be some teams that lose 2 games. So to answer your question, that was a long way to say that, yes, I definitely think Clemson's chances are still alive. They're going to need some help for sure as far as the ACC, some of the teams getting back on track and playing a good quality opponent, in the ACC championship game, should they get there. But other than that, there's just way too much football. I know what the stats say, but as I said, there's been a lot of turnover on rosters coming into this season. There's a lot of big football games yet to be played, and there are teams that are going to falter down the stretch that could put Clemson in a position to get back to the college football playoffs.
All right, well, if we look at the Coastal, and you've got both Miami and North Carolina taking losses all of a sudden, and then Duke loses to Charlotte. The Coastal Virginia Tech is looking better and better every day.
Definitely. I thought that Carolina was going to lose that football game. I had been saying off season that I was not a big believer in North Carolina simply because just too much offense was lost, too many key guys, and then a defense that was kind of middle of the pack, below average last year, and everybody was saying that was going to carry them. And they did play well against Virginia Tech, but to take in a bunch of new guys with not that much experience into a buzzsaw like Lane Stadium, named by many as the toughest place to play in the ACC for your very first game, and this is their very first time getting back together in full capacity in quite some time, there was not a lot of football teams who could have walked into that environment and gotten it done. And so, Carolina right now, the Coastal, Virginia Tech is looking like a team that can be formidable, but they also have some issues of their own as well. Offensively, they need to get a little bit more consistency. Braxton Burmeister's still kind of an unproven product. Their running game, they've got some guys. Holston's a good back. But Virginia Tech doesn't have a ton of guys offensively that scare you. We know the defense should be solid. Virginia Tech, they look like an option, but still a lot of the game to be left. I think circumstance played a lot into their beating of North Carolina.
Interesting stuff across the conference there, of course, with Clemson dropping their game. But when we look at it from a couple of different perspectives, North Carolina State has an opportunity to go in this weekend and play at Mississippi State. Mississippi State team that, almost needed a miracle to win over Louisiana Tech over the weekend. That could be a statement game there for Dave Doeren.
Well, I know State fans are nervous about that game. I wouldn't go as far as to call it a statement game just because Mississippi State has an SEC patch on their chest, and I think that's the thing.
But the SEC apologists are going to say that they're Alabama light. That's the vibe that I get around here. If you play in the SEC, then you're absolutely the best ever. Don't question it. Vanderbilt lost to a SoCon team, but that doesn't matter. They're still better than everybody else. But I think NC State can go in there and win that game. I really do.
Well, yeah, they definitely can. We saw what Mississippi State put on the field last week. We saw what happened to them. And some of their fans may say, well, hey, they were sleepwalking and whatnot. But this is not a team that's going to just absolutely fight anyone. And with NC State's talent, what they have returning, they should be able to go into Mississippi State and get this football game. To say that this is a statement game, though, I won't go that far. I will say it's a statement game in that NC State fans are kind of expecting the Wolfpack to do their version of what used to be called Clemson, where they expect them to lose a game that everybody anticipates they should be able to win. And so I think that's the part of the statement game to where it will ease the anxiety of the NC State fans to feel like, hey, this team is real. They're not going to falter in the spot where they should get the job done. So I think that's the statement that comes out of that football game if they're able to get the victory.
Well, Pitt going on the road to Tennessee. Pitt, that's another SEC ACC matchup. I can't remember having this many cross-conference matchups at the beginning of the season, but that should be an interesting matchup up there with Pickett at quarterback. Seems like he's been there since like right before you left college.
Yeah, Kenny Pickett, he is definitely a grizzled veteran. That's another matchup. I expect Pittsburgh to go up there and get the job done. Tennessee, this is not 1994. Tennessee is not the national power that they once were. They're trying to find their footing under head coach Josh Heupel. So I'm not going to, I think that Pittsburgh, I expect them to go up there and get the job done. I think this Pitt team should be a solid football team. Defensively, what you're going to get from them are Pat Narduzzi, Kenny Pickett and the crew. He's got weapons with Jordan Addison, Vincent Davis in that backfield. So I expect Pitt to handle business.
Let's look at Florida State with their matchup with Notre Dame. It seemed like the Irish and Florida State had kind of a back and forth game going on the offensive side of the ball. That's the best Florida State offense we've seen in a while.
Yeah, they definitely look good. And I thought Notre Dame, they dominated that game for a nice portion of the game, and then Florida State woke up. I was very surprised Jordan Travis trotted out there as the starter. Of course, I'm not in practice. I can't see what's going on. But McKenzie Milton looked to me just like he was more decisive in the pocket. He knew where he wanted to go with the football. He looked like he knew what the coverages were. I'd like to see him get that shot coming into their game this week, albeit it's against Jacksonville State. But, yes, I give Florida State their credit. And the biggest thing is they didn't quit because they got down. Things looked like the momentum was going to be all Notre Dame. Notre Dame came in and played really well. I definitely thought Jack Cohn and the crew throwing the football all over the place. They had a good pass rush, and Notre Dame did give up some huge plays. But then Florida State, as I said, I was pleasantly surprised the way that they fought to force that game to overtime. So, yeah, Florida State looks like a team, if they can continue on that type of trajectory, could be a team that surprises many, including myself.
Wes Bryant from the ACC Digital Network. Did you have another surprise from the past weekend that you saw and you were like, how did that happen?
Really, as I just looked across the landscape of the league, not really. I thought Duke would get the job done against Charlotte. I thought that would be a close game, but I thought in the end Duke would find a way to pull it out. That was a heck of a game. I watched probably the last good bit of the fourth quarter. And so that was a game I just thought that, you hate to see it, a team, for Charlotte, that was kind of their Super Bowl. I'm doing air quotes as I say that, with an ACC team coming into their building. So, of course, they wanted it probably just a little bit more. But I thought Duke fought, and they did. But I thought they would get it done. So if I had to point to another surprise, it would be Duke faltering at Charlotte.
Of course, the big weekend of matchups this coming weekend, Clemson, of course, plays South Carolina State. We mentioned the two SEC, ACC matchups that are out there as well. Is there another game that's kind of sneaky good this weekend?
When you look at it this weekend, and you're talking about the schedule, as I said, for sure, Miami and Appalachian State. That's the game that you want to see. We know Appalachian likes to look at themselves as Power 5 caliber, and they are a really good program. And this is a Miami team. We saw what happened to them against Alabama, but Alabama's going to do that to a lot of teams. So this, I think, is going to be a very intriguing matchup. One that I really want to see is how the Kings bounce back, how they respond against a really, really good Appalachian State team that can beat them. This is no if Appalachian State were to upset Miami, of course it would be disappointing, but I would not be surprised. I mean, I live here in North Carolina. I'm very familiar with the program. I've seen what they've done over the last decade plus. This is a rock solid program. And so Miami needs to be ready, because if they're not, they could be disappointed yet again, and it really put a real damper on their season.
Wes Bryant from the ACC Digital Network joining us here on the Rundown this afternoon. I have to ask you about conference expansion. We've seen where the Big 12 is trying to get Houston and Cincinnati and a couple of other teams. If you could wave the magic wand and get some teams to come to the ACC not named Notre Dame, what team would you like for the conference to join?
Oh, wow. Okay. Not named Notre Dame. You took that from me.
Yeah, because Notre Dame just makes too much sense.
How many do I get?
Well, I mean, I think that you would want two, like what to make it even across the board. But, you know, in theory, that's because that's kind of where they're going with the Big 12, and you'll have the same amount in the SEC. So you only get one, basically.
I would go with probably, I guess at this point, I'm going to go with the hot hand. I would go with Cincinnati.
They're talking about they're going to the Big 12, so that's.
So I can't have them. I thought you said if I can wave the magic wand.
Well, I mean, you don't want to. That would make it a little bit too easy if you just go that route. But I mean, if you could pick from another set. Okay,
well then I'll go with West Virginia. Then I think they would be a good fit. That was a team that they were talking about them along with Notre Dame coming over. I think the fan base is great. They have really good programs in football and basketball. So I think that would be good. And it would be interesting to see some of these warm weather teams that we have in our league have to go to Morgantown and have to play them in some late season, cold weather, snow falling, NFL themed music playing type of matchup.
I'd like to see Coach Huggins coaching up against Coach Boeheim every year. That would be good on the basketball front. I can get into that.
Yeah.
All right, so Wes Bryant from the ACC Digital Network, as always, joining us here on the Rundown. We really, really appreciate it. Tell folks where they can find some of the content you put out and where they can find you on social media.
Check us out on the ACC Digital Network on all the platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of that. ACC Digital Network, not the ACC Network. You can catch me personally on Instagram, Wes.Range704, and on Twitter, Wes.Range.
There you go. Hey, man, Wes, I always appreciate it, buddy. Thank you so much.
No problem, man. Enjoyed it as always.
All right, there you go. Wes Bryant from the ACC Digital Network joining us. Of course, he was an offensive lineman in the conference. Just getting his perspective on the Clemson matchup over the weekend. So if you want to respond to anything Wes said, 803-978-1832. A couple things we're going to get into here in a moment. A bowl game has been canceled. We'll tell you about that. And Ed Orgeron opened his mouth, and now he's basically getting mocked for it. We'll talk about that and a lot more when we come back. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Alan, I said that Clemson shouldn't rotate three centers. You only hear things in you only hear what you want to hear. It's amazing to me. I think there's the RR says the West Virginia just lost to Maryland. Yeah, well, I think there's a set of the blue bloods that are saying that the educational facilities at West Virginia aren't exactly up to par in the ACC. Brandon Kuhn says the Clinton at Swansea game has been canceled. Yeah. Look, I don't know if you've ever been to Swansea, but it's out in the middle of nowhere. That's not where you want to go, to be honest with you. Is Duke's Mayo real? Stop it, Alan. You're funny, Alan. All right, so you folks that are over there in the chat room, do you think Pitt's winning this weekend or Tennessee's going to take it? That's a tough matchup. Jackpot and I are going to break that game down tonight. Are you taking Duke, or excuse me, are you taking Pitt, or are you taking Tennessee? Lucas says he's taking Tennessee. Okay. Is it just because you like Tennessee, or is it because you have a valid reasoning behind it? Chris says Tennessee. RR says Pitt. Man, I tell you what. We'll talk about that game in just a second when I come back out of this break here. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. You know, looking ahead to some games this weekend, I asked the folks in the chat room if they thought it was going to be Pitt or Tennessee taking home the win there. I think Pitt's pretty solid, but Tennessee is at home. Winning on the road is tough regardless of who you are, to be honest. A couple of other games that are really interesting, though. I wonder if there's a lot of behind-the-scenes pressure. What I mean by that is that the SEC apologists that are out there, you think they're leaning on Arkansas, being like, look, you got Texas this weekend. They need a warm welcoming to the SEC. Don't go out there, Sam Pittman, and get blown out by Texas. I think Texas is a decent team, and we really don't know much about Arkansas yet, but could that be an interesting matchup where there's a little behind-the-scenes stuff? 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Out of the phones we go. Welcome into the Rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, what's up?
Have I missed something?
What'd you miss? Hello? What'd you miss there, friend?
Championship.
I'm sorry. Your phone dropped out there. What were you saying, buddy?
I said everybody has anointed Georgia as the number one team in the country. Have I missed something?
No. I think that all the polls have Alabama at number one. I think Georgia's at number two, though.
Well, I mean, they say that Clemson's season's over, so it must be December, right?
I think that after getting manhandled on that line, that people think that Clemson is not physical enough to match up with teams like Georgia, and I think that that's the vibe that people have. Like, I still think Clemson's going to have a great season. They have 11 games to go. So,
did Georgia's offensive line manhandle somebody?
No, of course not. They didn't score an offensive touchdown.
Is there a quarterback going to win the Heisman Trophy?
Probably not.
No. So that means they're going to be in close, tight games the rest of the year.
Yep.
Just like Clemson. They're both in the same boat.
I think that both defenses were outstanding. I think that the Clemson offensive line, though, really, really needs some work, though, because they were just getting blown off the ball.
Well, you got a true freshman and you got a redshirt freshman. You know, you're going to play them. If you don't play them, people are going to say, well, you got to play for the future. If you play them, they say, well, what are you doing? You're playing, you know. It's always a plus and a minus when you go with a freshman.
Yeah, but I think at this point, Dabo Swinney doesn't care. He's going to run out there whoever he wants. And then when people talk, he's going to look at it and see, like, do you see those 2 national championship trophies that are over there? Okay, shut your mouth. I mean, that's the vibe that he has, and he can get away with that because he actually wins. So
that's just my point. Who's won more national championships in the playoff era. It's Alabama. They won 3. Clemson's won 2.
Right.
I mean, they're already saying Clemson's not a top tier program anymore. Well, I mean,
a lot of that is bitterness from especially Georgia, who consistently has better talent, but they have a top 30 coach. I've said I don't think he's in the top 25. If they had a coach that was worth the salt, they would have won a national title with the talent that they have. Now, they're going to say, well, he beat Dabo Swinney the other night. Yes, he did. But would you rather have that loss and the 2 national titles or what you have? Because in reality, all Georgia fans have is their head-to-head thing over Clemson. That's it. Yeah. They can hang a banner for that in Athens, put it down there next to one of those what is it, the shrubs or whatever they have down there. Most wins over Clemson because they don't have national titles, but you can't argue that with Georgia fans. They think that they invented football. They're some of the best fans on earth. They're just silly. People
like Paul Feinbaum act like Georgia scored 60 and Clemson scored 3.
But Paul Feinbaum, you have to understand, the first thing that he's looking to is what Nick Saban wants him to say. The second thing is that he has to pick what he thinks is the second best team in the SEC so he can ride that like Zorro. Go back and look at the stuff he said about the Clemson-Alabama matchup in 2018, how Clemson was going to get blown out in the national championship game. I mean, they really have no clue when it comes down to it.
It's everybody at ESPN. It's the Heather Dinich. Clemson's over. Their run has stopped because they gave up a offensive touchdown.
Right. Well, these are the same people though at ESPN that were saying that Nick Saban had lost it after they got blown out by Clemson. And how did that work out for him?
Yeah.
So they just say things to get headlines, basically. When it comes back down to it, they're not very bright.
But Nick Saban was on TV saying, look, nobody is as good as their first game and nobody is as bad as their first game. Yeah. They don't want to listen to him when he says that, but, everything else is okay.
Hey, man, I appreciate you calling the program.
All right, man,
thanks so much. All right, there you go. Let's put back out to the phones. And welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon. Hello.
What's wrong with the sound on the thing?
Hello.
Hey, I agree. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What you got?
I agree with your previous caller. Now, look, I'm a South Carolina guy, but, I mean, Georgia scored 3 offensive 3 points on offense.
Yeah,
you ain't gonna beat Alabama with 3 points.
I'm telling you though, they think they're the best thing ever. As I said, this is the biggest win in the Kirby Smart era. They don't want to buy that. Oh, the win over they were favored to beat Oklahoma. This is the biggest win of the Kirby Smart era. That's why he ran off the field like he won the lottery. Oh my God, we won! I mean, seriously, that's the vibe that he had, and it's not taking anything away from what they did. They played great on the defensive side of the football. But for people who are like JT Daniels is awesome, get out of here. Slow down with all that.
No.
Slow down.
No, I don't know what that guy's done anyway. JT Daniels. I don't know. From California, that's fine. But I just don't know what he's done. I don't get the. But you're right. It's to help out. It was all about Kirby. It was the resurrection of Kirby because he was having a hard time.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that works out, buddy.
All right,
man. Thank you. And one more call here. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, what's up?
Tell Clemson fans just to get over it. They lost the game. It's over. And I'm the first one to tell you. I'm a Gator fan, and I don't like Georgia. I can tell you that right. I don't like Georgia.
Well, I don't think anyone likes Georgia but Georgia fans, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't like Georgia, period. But I think Clemson's going to lose 2 more ball games. I'm not sure they're going to beat Florida State. I'm not sure they're going to beat Boston College.
I said the other night that, or what was it, Monday show, that if Clemson's offensive line play like that, they could lose 3 games. So they better figure some things out. They really do need to do that. But you can make an argument that Georgia needs to figure some things out too, because 3 points on offense is not very good.
They couldn't run the ball and they couldn't throw the ball.
Couldn't do much of anything.
I ain't got no faith in their quarterback, no way.
But he's the savior, though, if you ask them.
Oh, that's because that's the best thing they got on the staff.
We'll see how that works out.
See what they did last year.
We'll see how that works out.
All right.
All right, man. Hey, thanks for calling the program.
Uh-huh.
All right. Take a quick break. We come back. We'll have more for you here on the rundown. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. That is the number to call. If you want to join us here on the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. If you want to roll with him, that's fine. I think you're taking too much with one game, but that's all right. You haven't watched Boston College play, Brandon. Boston College is solid. NC State has two great linebackers. Man, you guys don't like Florida fans. I mean, you should bow down to the king of the SEC East last year because you guys didn't take it home. You had a more talented roster. You didn't take it home, though. I don't know. Whatever. I don't know. I don't know, Brandon, about that. JT Daniels, Christ. You can't be a Georgia fan and be happy with the offense that was out there. Just saying. Someone said something, about ESPN spitting more facts. Well, according to their FPI, Georgia is 7th. I guess ESPN's facts have you as the 7th best team in the country. Clemson's still at 2. Make sure if you're going to ride the whole SEC, the ESPN puts out just facts, make sure it's the whole thing, not just what fits your argument because you're too stupid to do any research. It was a hell of a game there, JW. Georgia fans are like the most sensitive fans ever, though. They really are. It's like they're PMSing all the time. They take like hormone pills in the morning. And we don't want to suck, but we do. Ooh. We end up blowing a game we shouldn't. If you watch every analyst that I've watched here in the past couple of days, well, Georgia's going to drop a game eventually. We'll see. You had a quarterback. If you didn't have a quarterback, then that's your dumbass coach's fault. Should have developed a quarterback. It's the way that it is. It doesn't affect me, dude. Doesn't affect me. Georgia's still a gong show program with a gong show coach. You've got tons of talent, and you take people that have criminal records on your team. So there's that. Man, it's storming like crazy here. It's raining really hard out there. It's like beating down on the roof here. It's time to show your online assistant where you go for a good time. Okay, Google, play Fox Sports Radio 1400 on iHeartRadio. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. If you want to join us here on the show, a couple of quick notes here. Actually, we'll get to the notes in a moment. I was looking ahead to some of the matchups for this coming weekend. And you've got a couple that are kind of interesting. I mentioned Pittsburgh and Tennessee. Pittsburgh is a 3.5-point favorite as of today. South Carolina is a 2-point favorite over East Carolina as they go on the road. Clemson's favored by, I think it's 48-49 against South Carolina State. I can't remember. That's not really listed anywhere, to be honest. Other matchups, you've got Iowa and Iowa State. Iowa State's a 4.5-point favorite at home. Texas A&M and Colorado. Texas A&M goes on the road. I don't know how that happened. Someone forgot to tell Texas A&M they could do what Florida does or what Alabama does. Don't go play somewhere else. Just schedule a neutral site game or schedule games inside your state. Apparently, they didn't get that memo. They're playing at Colorado this weekend. They're a 17-point favorite. App State and Miami might be one of the more interesting matchups over the weekend. App State thinks that they can win. App State thinks that they can absolutely win this game against Miami. And there's always, you've heard people say, Let Alabama beat you, but don't let them beat you the second game. How much does Miami have left after they basically went out there and got their souls ripped out of them by Alabama? This game is at home for Miami. They're a 9-point favorite in that matchup. North Carolina State and Mississippi State. NC State is a 2.5-point favorite over the Cowbells. That game just seems like NC State should win it, but it's almost like Mississippi State's going to win just because they're at home. So we'll see how that one works out. Some other matchups to look at. Missouri at Kentucky. Probably the most intriguing matchup in the SEC this week. Two teams that are trying to say, hey, you know what? We want to move up in the East. I don't know. I think it's safe to say Georgia's going to win the East, but who's going to finish second? I think the only team that can theoretically challenge them on paper is the Florida Gators. But who can be right there, that second tier there? Is it going to be Mizzou? Is it going to be Kentucky? Kentucky is a 5-point favorite at Kroger Field. Having your field named after a grocery store is kind of funny. But Mizzou, they didn't look really, really great against Central Michigan. They did end up with like 9 sacks on the day or something. Their new defensive coordinator likes to blitz a good bit. Someone actually, I think it was Tim Brando, said that he thinks that, Will Levitas, the young man from Kentucky, is going to be, and I didn't say this is Tim Brando, he's going to be the equivalent of Joe Burrow to the Kentucky program. Get out of here with that nonsense. What a mess. You're going to compare a young man to Joe Burrow after one game, playing against Louisiana Monroe, who is really, really bad. I mean, I think Eastern Illinois would beat Louisiana Monroe. It's just my opinion. I just laugh hysterically when I think I tweeted that out. By the way, you should follow me on Twitter. I'm at Rob Sounds Good. And that's from Tim Brando, who's a national guy, seen a lot more football than I have. Yeah, Will Levitas is going to be the Joe Burrow to Kentucky. Can we just slow down on Kentucky a little bit? I like Coach Stoops. I'd love to see what Coach Stoops would do with a roster full of talent. I would love that. But on the other hand, when I step back and think about it, he's come up short because he can't develop a quarterback. Can't get someone to come there and play quarterback for them. His best quarterback is when he moved a wide receiver to quarterback, basically. Kentucky, I remember like Andre Woodson and guys like that. Yeah, they were pretty good quarterbacks, but not really. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Caden says Missouri is going to stomp their dreams out. You know what? You might be right. Might be right on that, man. It's going to be an interesting matchup either way. I think that's the best matchup of the weekend for the SEC because you've got two teams that are trying to break out of the mold in the East. And imagine where you can go from here. You win this game, you're going to be fine. I mean, you move up in the standings a little bit. It's a very pivotal matchup. So I like that matchup a lot. Mizzou and Kentucky, as they're playing at what time? 7:30 on a Saturday night. I will be watching that game in the confines of my home because I will be wrapped up with our Gamecock coverage by then because the Gamecocks play at noon on Saturday. Vanderbilt playing Colorado State. For some reason, Vanderbilt's going to Colorado State. What the hell's going on in Colorado where SEC teams are saying, you know what, we'll come up there and play? Yeah, Vanderbilt and Colorado State. Colorado State is a 7-point favorite in that matchup. Vandy, if they play like they did last week, they may go 0-12. They really might. On the national front, you've also got the matchup with, Ohio State and Oregon. I tell you what, the Pac-12, they're just hoping that Oregon doesn't go up there and lay a complete egg. Seriously, That's kind of what they're really, really hoping up there. I'm trying to find the line on that game, which I cannot find right now for some reason. But one of the bigger, there it is. Oregon is almost a 2.5 touchdown. No, sorry, 14.5 point underdog. Oof. Brandon wants to know what's the line for Kansas and Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina is favored by 25.5. Wow. 25.5 points for the Shots. Boy, they're making themselves some crazy down there. And, it's going to be not too long before Jamie Chadwell moves on to somewhere else. Or he may stay there and just wait for the right job. We'll see on that. Florida and South Florida this weekend. They play Florida's a 28.5 point favorite in that matchup. You think Jeff Scott's not missing being the offensive coordinator at Clemson yet? Might be a better job to be the offensive coordinator there than the head coach at South Florida. Either way, his Bulls are 4 touchdown underdogs to Florida this weekend. All right, we're taking your calls at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Is Clemson done? Do you think that Clemson will be done for the season if because of the loss to Georgia? Or have we still got too much football left? We'll take your calls on that at 803-978-1832. Also, the Gamecocks play at East Carolina this weekend. Who are they going to roll out there at quarterback? They've mentioned Dakereon Joyner. They've mentioned Zeb Nolan. They've mentioned Luke Doty. Who's going to be the starting quarterback for the Gamecocks this weekend? Will we see all 3 of them? We shall see. 803-978-1832. If you're out and about, the rain is just beating down out there right now. Be sure to hold yourself in the road as you roll along this afternoon. This is The Rundown. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but my goodness, this rain is insane. Like what? There's talk that Clemson wins out therein. I just don't see that. Because I think it's silly to say if Georgia wins out, which I don't know if they can or not, they have to get past their dumb coach. But if they can do that and they win out but lose the SEC championship game, it's going to be hard to say, hey, let's not take Georgia. They have the head-to-head win over Clemson. I think that's important, but JW says they better not overlook UAB. Jamie Newman is not my boy. I don't know what you're talking about. I know you guys are upset, but he left. I mean, I don't know what his problem was. He played, just decided, hey, I don't want to play. I honestly don't think any of that matters, to be honest with you. Caden, I don't think that matters. I think in their mind, if you win the conference title, and you didn't give up an offensive touchdown in the only loss that you had, that'll hold weight with the committee. And the Georgia schedule is nothing to write home about. I mean, it's Florida and who else? It's not exactly, light years awesome. Auburn may be good, maybe. The new Joe Burrow. I didn't say it. I did retweet it though. Welcome back to the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeart Radio app. I'm Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining me today. As we roll along here, it's a weird week, man, because kind of the Labor Day kind of threw me off a little bit, but we're gonna have picks and stuff for you on Friday. And then we'll go from there. But a couple of notes before we get out of here today. The Red Box Bowl has been canceled for the 2021 college football season. First of all, does anybody use the Red Box anymore? I'm just saying. Most people now can dial up whatever they want on their televisions, but whatever. Here's the thing, though. They couldn't find an actual TV partner for their bowl game. And I'm like, wait a minute, they can't find a TV partner for their bowl game. Why is that? Here is the projected matchup for the Red Box Bowl if it was going to happen. It would be the Pac-12's 6th selection and the Big Ten's 7th selection. Think about that for just a second. Does anybody really want to see that? So, there are 130 Division I teams, something like that. 84 of them could, in theory, make a bowl game until this game was decided. They decided they were going to cancel it. Now we're down to 41. I'm in the camp of let's get down to 30. Yeah. If you're a 6-6 team, you don't belong in a bowl game. Let's get back to the days of, hey, we have an 8-4 team. Let's go that route. And I don't like the idea of the conference, the conference gets to pick who gets to go. And I don't like that either. Let the bowls determine, hey, this is where we want to go. I don't know if you probably have to keep your bowl tie-ins, but I like the idea of you need more than 6 wins. And you actually have to build a resume. Bama Man Online says he'd have watched that game 2 weeks ago. Yeah, but are you going to watch it in December? Probably not. Probably not. So I'm for let's eliminate it down to 30 games. I mean, do you really want to see those other 12 matchups? Not so much. Not so much. So let's all take a moment to say goodbye to the Red Box Bowl as that's gone away. Finally, LSU head coach Ed Orgeron basically yelled at somebody, you over there in that sissy blue shirt, at a UCLA fan on Saturday. And, of course, he goes out and loses the game. The Bruins football players now have a chance to cash in on that viral exchange. Bruins Reporter Online says that the actual UCLA fan who was the subject of the taunt by Orgeron on Saturday has opened the website sissyblue.com, which will sell shirts with the phrase on them. Quote, we want to release merchandise where 100% of the proceeds will go to UCLA football student athletes themselves with new NIL rules in place. Once a Bruin posts the shirt on their social media platform, they'll be eligible to receive proceeds from sales. Please request your shirt today. We'll be updating styles and looks forward to serving Bruin Nation. Ladies and gentlemen, if you know an LSU fan, I went and checked out sissyblue.com earlier. You should send every LSU fan you know a t-shirt. Because after the crap that they talked about, they were going to go out there and just, it was like if you look online, they're tailgating, doing the Cajun thing in the parking lot, and God bless them for that. But man, losing that game, they were upset. I think that's one of the first strikes there. Well, you had strikes last season with Ed Orgeron, like not interviewing your defensive assistants. Those things are bad. Those things are really bad. But now you've got people making websites called sissyblueshirt.com simply to mock what you're saying on the field. It's actually just sissyblue.com. So if you know an LSU fan, you should send them a T-shirt. And by the way, you should also send some to Coach Orgeron. If I'm the CEO of sissyblue.com, I would send him 5 shirts. Thanks, Coach. Thanks a lot. How'd that Sissy Blue work last weekend when they handled your SEC team that you brought in here, thinking you could just roll the football out there and win the game? How'd that work out for you? Yeah, not so good, right? Not so good. And I'm going to be honest with you. I thought LSU was going to do that. I thought LSU was going to literally roll out there and slap Chip Kelly around. I truly believe that. And you know what? There's not much you could have said to me that would have said, hey, you know what, Rob? Maybe this is, maybe they have a chance. I would have been laughing at you. I really would have. But Chip Kelly, he wasn't having it.
There may be some people surprised out there. There wasn't anybody surprised in our locker room because of the preparation that they put in this week.
Stop it, Coach. Like everybody doesn't prepare. Get the hell out of here with all of that. You think teams run around not preparing and that's what makes them lose games? Come on now, Coach. I'm not buying that at all. But LSU had a chance to go in and start the season off right. Now they got to play McNeese this weekend. Ed Orgeron squaring off against his son. Think about that. I think his son is a starting quarterback for McNeese. Wow. You know, we talk about coaches that are on the hot seat. I think Scott Frost is on the hot seat. Randy Edsall just said, screw it, I'm quitting. I think that in the ACC, I think if North Carolina has a tough season, Mac Brown may go back into retirement. They finish 8-4, 7-5. Not exactly the crazy good season they thought they were going to have. He may go back into retirement, but I think Dino Babers is going to go somewhere else, or he's going to be shown the door. I also think that Coach Satterfield, we had a caller from Louisville yesterday, said point blank, hey, he's done with Coach Satterfield. And so is that fan base. I don't have boots on the ground up there to cover Louisville very much, but if you look on your social media front, they're not very happy with Coach Satterfield, period. But in the SEC, you can make an argument that Coach Orgeron may be the only one that's is really and truthfully on the hot seat. All the other coaches are pretty much locked in. Dan Mullen may take an NFL job. You never know when Nick Saban might decide, hey, I want to retire. I doubt that's going to happen, but in theory, sometimes you don't see those things coming. But as far as, hey, we're going to show you the door, Ed Orgeron has to be the number one on the list there. All right, tomorrow we'll break down some of the games. We'll go behind enemy lines a little bit, including, you know what, I'm not going to break down South Carolina State and Clemson, not because I just don't think it's going to be a very good matchup. But we could look at East Carolina and South Carolina tomorrow. We'll also look at that Kentucky and Missouri matchup because they've got the what I think is the most intriguing game of the weekend. All right, Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk is next. He is the czar of Clemson Sports. You can follow him on Twitter at Clemson Sports.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
He's also at ClemsonSportsTalk.com, and he will take care of you this afternoon. All right, thanks for joining us for the show. We'll be back at it tomorrow on The Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Appreciate you guys. New Rob and Kale show tonight. We'll have our pick'ems on tonight. I might buy Kale a Sissy Blue shirt. That might happen. Appreciate you guys, man. We'll see you later.